The first tiny step towards freedom. Consider this question: who's in charge? Who's in charge? When I was a kid, my parents were in charge. You go to school, the principal's in charge. You get a little bit older, you learn the president's in charge. But now as an adult, I'm a 31-year-old man. Who's in charge? The secret is no one's in charge. No one is in charge. Not the boss of your company, not the president of the United States, I'll tell you that much. People are freaking out about Trump, and he does have influence. I'm not saying no one has influence, but he's not in charge. The way the world works, the way the world unfolds, no one's in charge. It's an unfolding. That's a word the Buddhists use, is that there's a great unfolding that's happening. And I resonate with that. That makes sense to me. I think there's something that's happening. There's stuff that's going on. There's people that seek to influence what's going on. But fundamentally, no one's in charge. Now, for me, that was actually a very empowering idea. If you realize no one's in charge, it's like, wait a minute. Well, I can make choices. I can decide things. Let's take a concrete example. At work, I would say even there, no one's in charge. Again, there are people that influence things. There are people that have unique positions of power currently. But how things are going to unfold, that's up in the air. And if you want, that's something you can have influence on. A famous phrase is, power is not given, it's assumed. It kind of seems like, oh, is this like mafia boss? Is this warlords? Power is assumed. I think it's more like, it just comes down to a social sort of situation, in that you're at dinner, there's 20 people there. It turns out the host is late. He didn't show up for whatever reason. What's going to happen? Who's going to take charge? Really, it kind of comes down to whoever takes charge. Now, there are a little bit of dynamics in there, and that you kind of want to be charismatic a little bit. It helps. You have to be somewhat fair, or at least the appearance of fairness, or people will reject you. So there are some details in there, but a main point is someone can just take that power. Someone can step into that role and lead. Or let's say you had a more direct goal in mind, and there was a plate of chocolate chip cookies that you really wanted. I think you can drastically increase your chances of getting those chocolate chip cookies if you take an active role. You say, how about I will set up the different tables? I'll put food on the different tables. You do think something that's useful to the group, but you also gain a position of influence, and maybe you slip yourself a couple extra cookies. When you think about this idea that actually no one's in charge, it's all just people. It's just people. The government, the police, they have unique roles, blah, 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 blah. In the end, they're just people. They're like you and me. They have good days, they have bad days, they have strengths, they have weaknesses. There's just a system right now that kind of assumes the government are the people that have power, and people generally respect it. But there's no reason that it will always be that way. There's been revolutions, there's been coups, and I'm not even calling for this, but I'm just pointing out that those people aren't in charge just because they're in those roles. Even if the government isn't overthrown, there can be people that actually wield the real power and the real things that change and move this world and this universe. So what does this mean for me? What does this mean for you? The next time you're in, let's say, a work situation, this is a common thing to a lot of people. Your boss says to you, hey, things are getting changed up coming up in a couple months. They're going to need someone new on this project, and we have to get this out in a couple weeks. We're going to let you know what we decide coming up soon. A common reaction is, oh, interesting. Let me know. I'll think about it. Maybe I'll even hope for what my preferred outcome is. Instead of doing that, do this. Come up with your ideal of what you would want to happen if you were in charge. Let's pretend you're in charge for a moment and do a little mental exercise. And write down on a piece of paper exactly how it would be. Actually, I would like to lead that project, and I think Jenny, my coworker, should do the first draft. Let's say this is your ideal situation. Jenny does good writing, and you want the leadership role to eventually maybe get more pay. So, all right, you've thought of exactly what you want. Now think about what the company wants, or what your boss wants, or whoever's the person above you that has more power than you. Think about what they want. What would make them happy? What would make their life easy? What would make them be able to tell the person above them, hey, I'm doing stuff good? And incorporate that into your plan. Okay, I propose I'm going to be in charge of the project. Jenny's going to write the first draft. And actually, we've already come up with a structure of how the draft's going to be, and we're going to put it together in the next week, even though it's not due for 2 weeks. And offer that up to your boss. Say, I thought about the conversation we had where there's going to be a restructuring. I propose that I lead the project. Jenny writes up the first draft, and we'll have the first one done in a week. I'm happy to discuss this further. Send that off to your boss. Maybe he'll let you do it. Maybe it won't. You're not being a D-bag about it. You're not, I don't know, committing some social faux pas. You've proposed something. You've offered a new reality into the world. And it's one that happens to benefit you, which is good. But here's the thing. By putting words to that, by putting structure to that, by putting that effort into that, you've now drastically increases the chances of it coming to light. Just compare the probability that that's going to happen as if you had said, compare that to as if you had said nothing and you just hoped for it. Maybe it would have happened, but the odds have gone drastically up. And this all centers from the idea that actually no one's in charge. And it's not a given who's going to be in charge of any situation. Really what's going on are there are just social dynamics. Some people like to be in charge, some people don't. Also, people just have different time schedules. They have different obligations. Not everyone can fight for every opportunity and everything that's out there. Not everyone's paying attention. Not everyone puts the work in. So my belief is that a first tiny step towards freedom, and by freedom I mean, oh, I'm trapped in this world. I'm trapped in my situation. I don't have control over the outcome of my own life. The first tiny step towards freedom is to consider that no one is in charge. And if you really believe that no one's in charge, how might you act?